Hey y'all, so as you can see, I got me a new amp. This is the Fender Blues Junior version 4. I've had it a day or so, just now getting into it, but so far I really like it. I had the Fender Blues Junior 3, and I had it for a couple weeks and I took it back just because the reverb was just way too much, almost unusable. Even when you had it really low on the dial, it was just way too much. But they fixed that on this version. They upgraded the speaker and they changed the chicken head knobs to like a white color, so they're really easy to see. I really like it. I think it looks really cool. They upgraded the handle, so this is the same kind of handle that was on my Deluxe Reverb 65 reissue. You know, that's like a $1,500 amp or $1,200 amp. So it's good to see in terms of the quality. It seems really well put together. I ordered mine off Sweetwater, and it's been great so far. So I was just going to try to run through a couple sounds on a Les Paul and a Strat to maybe give some people, because I know some of these reviews on YouTube, it's hard to tell like how loud is that really in your house. And so what I would say is this amp, I wouldn't really call it like a house amp. You can play it in the house, and like right now, wife and the kids are gone, so I got the house to myself, so I can get a little loud and play. And you can get it at a volume where you can get even some crunch without pedals to play some like blues rock stuff at a fairly reasonable volume within the house without bugging your neighbors. If you turn the master volume way down and crank the pre-gain or just the normal volume all the way up, but I would say the tone with that is not that great, so it's kind of a trade-off. The tone when you have kind of the master volume maybe like on 7 or 8 on the dial, which is a little over halfway up, and the volume about halfway up, it's really killer, like blues rock tone. I like it a lot. But I would say that's way too loud for a house when you have that on. And just in general, this amp is way too loud for an apartment, I believe. So if you're thinking about that, I know it's just 15 watts, but it's loud. So I guess I'll just jump into it and try to throw some sounds. The way I got it right now, so the dial goes to 12, and I got both the pre-volume and the master volume at 3, and the treble, middle, and bass kind of straight up at 12 o'clock. The reverb on 3. So it sounds something like this, and this is about probably as loud as you could get it in a house without bothering anybody. So you can see if you hit it kind of hard, especially with Les Paul, it's even starting to break up right there with the master on 3 and just the pre-volume on 3. Now if I put the pre-volume up to 12 o'clock Leave the EQ the same. It's still pretty clean, but it's pretty loud for a house. Turn it up to 10 on the pre-volume. And I'm going to engage the fat switch on the neck pickup. That's where this amp shines. It's awesome, but I'll be honest, like I play pretty small gigs, and that's probably too loud for some of the small gigs that I play. I think this is something. I think the best way, if you're just kind of playing smaller places, to use this amp would be something like use like a tube screamer or something to get your overdrive at kind of a lower volume and just mic it through a PA. That's what I would do. But when I'm home alone and ain't nothing going on, you can crank it a little bit. So here's the pre-volume like cranked all the way up and the master turned down. Again, that whole time the master was at 3. So you turn the master down to like 2. So I mean, it's super quiet. I mean, I can talk with it. That's 2, and here's 3. So that's like barely moving the master dial at all. Now, I know they said they were supposed to fix that. That was an issue on the old versions too. To me, they didn't fix that as much as maybe they say. I don't know. But I'm gonna turn the volume back down and just show you the reverb taper. They did fix that, and I really like that. So here's the reverb I've been playing on is just 3. Now here's it at noon. Now here's it about 75% of the way up at 10. And here's it dimed. So I mean, it's still very usable even when it's dimed, and that was not the case on the previous versions. So pre-volume cranked, master still at like 2, the reverb cranked. This is kind of like if you want to get loud and overdriven, but you have people in your house. Good tone for a home when you're just practicing or whatever. So then I guess the last thing I'll do with the Les Paul, I'm gonna turn the reverb back down to just like quarter of the way up on 3. I'll turn the master volume pretty much to 10, about 3/4 of the way up. And turn the volume to about 5 or 6, almost halfway up. So that's pretty loud. Alright, I'm gonna get the Strat. Got the pre-volume on 3, just 1/4 of the way up. Master volume on 3, 1/4 of the way up. Reverb on 3, 1/4 of the way up. EQ, bass and middle are at noon. And I rolled back the treble to just below noon, kind of like 10 o'clock on the dial. Because the Strat's pretty bright. Even I'm on the neck pickup and it's still pretty bright. What are we gonna do? Okay. On the second position. So that's pretty clean. That's not too terribly loud. I think you could play that in a house. The reverb, I think it sounds even better on a Fender style guitar with the single coils. Okay. Now, low, I should say the fat switch, I have it on the whole time with a Strat or a Telly. I just think it gives a little more meat, a little beefiness. I just prefer that. So if I crank the pre-volume, put the master at 2, I'm in the 4th position. This is kind of like a thick overdrive, I guess you could get with a Strat style. you got that master volume really low. I think the Strat and Tele single coil sound a little bit better because they're not as muffled, like maybe the humbuckers on the Les Paul would be. But I have not played this with the master volume crank, so let's see what that sounds like. Well, it's about 3/4 of the way up, and I got the volume at noon, the pre-volume at noon. Add a little bit more reverb just to see. So on the neck pickup, that's pretty loud. That is loud. I'll put it down on 2. All right, this is everything cranked. So hopefully that was helpful. I think you can get, this is a very versatile amp. It's a great amp for the money. I highly recommend it. It's awesome so far, what I've done with it. It's a big improvement from the previous versions. I think they did a good job. They did fix the volume taper slightly, but it's just kind of like, if you want that great overdriven natural tube sound, you really have to crank the master volume, and you won't be able to do that in an apartment for sure. More than likely, you're not going to be able to do that in your house unless everyone in your house is out and your neighbors are maybe gone too. In a band setting, I think you can get some pretty good tones at a middle volume, and you probably have to mic it through the PA, especially if you're playing a bigger place. It takes pedals well. I put a tube screamer through it, and I mean, that for me anyway, that's about, I don't use any really high gain pedals, so I guess I can't say that. It takes like a tube screamer, transparent overdrive type of pedal well. So I really like it. I think the upgraded speaker sounds awesome. It's a Celestion A type. I guess it's like kind of an American version. But yeah, I mean, I think it's got some good reverb, usable reverb. So I like that quality of it because like my deluxe Reverb reissue 65 had really good reverb, which I liked, but it had no master volume. It was just one volume, old school. And so I very rarely, even gigging it with a full band, was able to turn it up past 3 or 4 on the dial, and we just had to mic it because it just was too loud on stage. Whereas this, you can get away with turning it up a little bit louder and having some more control with the master volume. But then I think you can get more high gain settings in something like the Princeton or the Deluxe Reverb, and it's got that speaker, it sort of gives it, the Celestion. They're kind of known for like the Marshall sound or whatever, but it's kind of a good mix, I think, if you're someone who plays, a lot of stuff that's, kind of between that country and like Southern rock, Blackberry Smoke sound. So it works for me. I'm really happy with it. So yeah, check it out if you're in that market for an amp. All right, hope this was helpful. Take it easy.